April blue, the religious day, fire and wind will make them stray.
Welcome to Clear Lake in Review, this week brought to you by the Clearall Oil Company in Clear Lake. We have a special treat this afternoon, a tour of a log cabin in Clear Lake. My guests, Ruth and Myron Kuhn.
You've had your tears, you've had your joys and heartaches too. Like the old folks said, that's what to do. They'll stick together and see you through. Because Clear Lake, we're proud of you. Yes, Clear Lake, we're proud of you.
Welcome, Evie Nurbin. My husband and I would like to invite you and the general Clear Lake public to join us in an afternoon tour of our 1887 cabin.
Could you tell us just a little bit, in the beginning of our tour, about the history of the cabin? Mr. Kuhn, what prompted you to come up with a fantastic project like this?
Well, I seen one that I would like to, that I liked, and I was always interested in building log cabins, so I decided I would start one of our own, and this is what we have. And so we kept on with this one until we got it finished. And do you want to?
Yes, could you tell us about the early history of the cabin, the early people who lived here, and where the cabin came from?
The cabin came from the Norwegian immigrants, Carl Gravemon, along with his wife and some.
And son.
With his wife and some and son, Hans and Ole, purchased an acre of wild land on May 26, 1887, from Chicago, St. Paul, Minneapolis, and Omaha Railroad. This land lay at the New Haven Township, at 31 North Range, 14 West, Northeast of Section 3 in Dunn County, Wisconsin. It is believed that with the help of local carpenter, Mr. Hilson, built the cabin that summer. And we purchased the cabin in the spring of '72, and on August 21st, with the aid of some 50 friends and relatives, erected the walls on this cabin, on this site. In the spring of '73, it was completely restored and furnished. This cabin is now 88 years old.
How about the appearance of the cabin from the outside? For someone that's driving through Clear Lake and comes to the Kuhn home, what does it look like?
Well, it looks like an old home that they used to live in. So they got kind of interested in it, and a lot of people stop and look at it as they drive by. And
it's kind of a unique setting, too, with the background of pine trees. And I noticed on a tour outside that we have many of the native plants that you're starting to move in around the cabin, the vines and the bittersweet, and many of the things that are native to this area back 100 years ago.
Yeah, it's getting so it's going to be closed in before long, and we hope to have it all, trees all growing up around it before long, and with the bittersweet and all that, it'll be all covered in. And
Ruth, could you take us on a tour through the downstairs of the cabin?
Yes, I'll be glad to. Would you like to start right here with this bed that was the one that I always slept in when I was a child? And on it we have my mother's quilt, a piece quilt with many tiny little pieces, and also a lady's shawl, her umbrella, her handkerchief, and her travel case all fitted with ivory pieces. And that would be what she would take if she was going out. And moving on around, we have, we have 2 old rockers, a little center table with our kerosene lamp and the Bible, and stereopticon, which is not familiar to everybody. And we have an old-time magazine rack hanging on the wall with old things in it. And on our clock shelf, we have many old pieces, old books, and pieces of knickknacks would be called. And we have all the authentic pictures. And the table is set like it would be at that time, ready for company. Down complete with the high chair and the teddy bear in it, and the child's dishes. We have an old buggy, very old here, a wicker buggy that we have ready for a baby. I just had my little granddaughter in it shortly ago. And there's a commode here with all the pieces all ready to step up and use. We have on this wall, we have a plant on a plant stand and a fainting couch. We have an old Sears Roebuck catalog here that people like to leaf through. It's very interesting. And of course we have our old cupboard filled with the dishes. And we have lots and lots of old pieces here. And our old cook stove with the sad irons on it, which people certainly relate to when they come. They all remember how they had to use them. Did you notice, Evie, our roomy grout stirrer there?
No, I didn't.
It's there, the little wooden thing there that you roll between your hands and make the your roomy grout, which is sour milk with cinnamon sugar added and so forth. It's simmered on the back of the stove. And it was a staple, I think, and quite a treat at that time, being this was a Swedish area through here. I'm sure it's still made in many of the homes around here.
Some of the interesting things on the back wall have caught my eye. I'm sure that's a kraut cutter.
Oh, yes.
How about
the coffee grinder. And, of course, Myron is the one who tells people all about the wooden tools that he has there. He has a broad axe, planes, and ice tongs, different things. And there's a corn planter there that they used to use by hand. Go out in the field and stab it into the ground. Would drop the seeds in. Oh, he has lots of things there. He has a cream separator. And he generally takes over and tells about all those things.
Myron, how about the tool that I saw a bit ago for notching the logs?
Oh, I have the thing that we make the holes in the logs with. We just purchased that here a week ago. And they're very, very old. There isn't many of them around anymore.
How about some of the other tools over here under the stairway?
And we have a broad axe that they use to hew the logs out with. And you can take the handle out of it and put it on the other end of it, and then it's for a right and a left-handed person. And we have a piece of a grindstone or of a rock that was made for grinding flour years and years ago. We only have one part of that. And we have a shoemaker's kit that they used to go around and fix shoes at the different places.
How about the construction of the house itself, Myron? I understand that Clear Lake's oldest residents had a hand in the windows in this particular cabin.
The windows was bigger in it, and when I wanted the windows smaller, so I got Will Sadler to make the windows smaller for me, and he done all that for us in the cabin, which I thought was very nice of him.
Ruth, how about the furnishings upstairs in the cabin?
Well, as you've seen, Evie, they are fitted. It is fitted out for children up there. And as we go up, we see the two beds. One is a wooden and one is iron bed, which I was thrilled to find under the paint had brass knobs on all four posts. And we have the authentic quilts there from my family on both of them, some old dolls that we have. And there is our spinning wheel, and the ladies, I'm sure, of the house would spend their afternoons there, working there, and probably knitting and spinning and sewing in different ways, mending. And we have two commodes there, a couple old trunks, and children's pictures and children's books, and some toys and dishes. And we find it's quite fascinating to children who come. They'd all like to carry down some of it and play with it, they say, or else they'd like to stay and sleep there when it's raining, which is very nice. We enjoy that very much, to hear the rain on the roof. It's something soothing about that. I can't tell what, but it is. And when we have groups come in here, we follow them around and tell them the main points, and then they ask questions. And we find the school groups are really thrilling. We really get a big boost out of that, because they're so sincere. They have so many questions to ask, and we really enjoy it when any special groups come.
To try to give the listeners kind of a visual picture of the cabin itself, we're in one room in the first floor of the cabin. What are the dimensions of the building, Myron?
How big is it?
The cabin is 14 and a half by 22 and a half. And the bottom log was rotted out, so we lowered the ceiling so now it's kind of low for people that are very tall, but we seem to get along with it pretty good.
And then in the one room we have the kitchen toward one end, the bed in another corner, the fainting couch, and you're going to have to explain that to me and the listeners.
The fainting couch draws great interest. Whoever comes in notices it first, I think. And it's exactly like the one we had in our family when I was growing up. And I spent a great deal of time lying on it reading. So I found it and had it recovered and gave it to Myron for a Christmas present one year. So that has a special meaning to us. And my Christmas cactus that loves it here, loves the atmosphere here, is a very old plant. It was given to me by Mrs. Will Schultz when I was a young bride. She came and gave me a tiny slip, and it's been a stubborn plant all these years. It hasn't grown very much, but it blooms every year faithfully, and I have a special feeling for it. I'll never let it go, because I loved Mrs. Schultz. She was such a good neighbor, and she was very kind to me when I was a new bride and moved into the neighborhood.
How about a little bit of music here? You have a special instrument that you're going to have to explain, and we'll get a little bit of music too.
Well, now this is Myron's pride and joy, and it's a gramophone, which of course is very old. And this is a perfect one that has all the horn and everything intact. So we'll listen to something on it.
With the gramophone in the background, I'm going to bid a fond adieu to Ruth and Myron Kuhn from Clear Lake. Fantastic 1888 log cabin here in Clear Lake, and on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Kuhn, offer an invitation to people of the Clear Lake community and western Wisconsin to come and visit them this summer, centennial year. They're here in the evening, on the weekends. It's certainly worth your time to come and see the cabin here at Myron and Ruth Kuhn's home. This is Evie Nurbin reporting for this week's edition of Clear Lake in Review. This week's program brought to you by the Clearall Oil Company in Clear Lake. We invite you to join us again next week, 1 o'clock Thursday afternoon, for another edition of Clear Lake in Review.